Now, Restore passenger rail protesters glued themselves to the Wellington motorway this morning. At least 17 police officers were at the scene working to remove the protesters from the motorway using acetone to remove their hands that had been stuck to the road. In October of last year, 6 Restore passenger rail protesters who invaded the motorway access to the Terrace Tunnel were charged with willful trespass when they blocked the road. And here we go again. With us is James Cockle, spokesperson for Restore passenger rail. James, welcome.
Hi, Wallace. Great to be with you.
Good to have you on. My first thought, James, frankly, was how dangerous this looked, lying on the road. You could have been killed.
It is a risky thing to do, but we take every safety precaution possible to ensure the safety of both our supporters and of the travelling public.
There were, 8 protesters? What's happened to the others? Where are they now?
So the protesters this morning were arrested. They were taken to Wellington Central Station and then charged with, it's a new one, danger to traffic or something along those lines, which is a little bit more of a harsh charge than people have been charged with before. And they were taken to the Wellington District Court, and I don't know what's happened to them since then. I'm expecting they will have been out on bail by now, but I don't know that for sure. Of course, they're taking these actions because our government is refusing to take action on climate change. We're desperate, and I don't know if you know what the situation is, but if you do, and you're not taking action, I have to ask why.
The method of protest, James, do you think this is an acceptable way to protest? Because many people going en route in the morning would probably think otherwise. Yeah,
people are really annoyed, and I understand. I would be annoyed if I was stuck in that queue as well.
So why'd you do it?
Pardon?
Why'd you do it?
Because it's the only action we can take that gets the attention of the media and the government. I don't know if you remember, a couple of years ago, I sat in front of a coal train carrying 500 tonnes of coal to be burned to dry milk. And you and I spoke about it on this show. Well, no, we didn't, because you didn't have me on the show, because nobody heard about it. These are the kinds of actions we have to take. People say, why don't you do other things? We've done the other things. We've been trying for years to get the government's attention and to get them to take action. And what they do to us is they kick us in the guts with a climate policy bonfire. It's a betrayal of our people.
Let's go to the panel on this. Julia, you first.
I think it's ridiculous. We've got to have trains. I'm just worried about all those people glued together, and I'm worried about the effects of acetone, because I do deal with a bit of acetone in my time. But here's the thing. Look, it's the same here. We need trains. Because do you know, Wallace, now, okay, I haven't come in to see you today because of COVID, etc., but it takes me now 5 hours round trip to get into you and back again.
Are you kidding?
And no, I'm not kidding.
And you're in the same city? Does it?
Totally. I am now 2 hours on the motorway each way to get to you and back again. And when I'm an hour and a quarter in the studio, so it's a tad more. But that shows you how and I've been on this panel, for 20, I don't know how many years. And it used to take me 40 minutes it used to take. And now it's 5 hours in total.
Okay, so you're broadly supportive of James and the Restore passenger rail protesters there. All right, James, stay there. Let's bring Phil O'Reilly in.
Yeah, it's good to have a debate and all this sort of stuff, but the challenge, of course, is that you just annoy the heck out of people and potentially the argument goes backwards. And I was reminded of, James, I'm interested in your view on this, the Extinction Rebellion movement in London. I was in London while they did one of their protests, and London was in gridlock, probably increasing climate change massively that particular afternoon. And as I understand it, they've actually started walking away from some of that kind of activity simply because they're now realising it doesn't actually work, because it just annoys people and actually doesn't get people to buy into the story of change that's necessary. So I was interested that you guys still think it's worth doing, but but these, as I understand it, Extinction Rebellion in the UK and elsewhere is starting to walk away from that.
James?
Yeah, Phil, as other organisations have stepped up, we're one of 11 countries across the world in the UK, Italy, Sweden, Norway, France and others standing up to take this kind of action. So in the UK, there is Just Stop Oil taking action like we are. As other organisations have started to do that, Extinction Rebellion has started to expand their message and expand their group. We need all of the groups being involved, the ones that are taking radical action like us and the ones that are getting people out on the streets. And boy, we'd love to have you involved, Phil. I understand you're a lobbyist, and if you could get us some access, you could really help us. And, you know, there's a good reason to do so, because I'm sure you realise that we're on the track to go above 1.5 degrees, above 2 degrees. We're on a trajectory to go over 3 degrees of warming. Now, at 2 degrees of warming, there's parts of the world that are uninhabitable. Where will those people go? Where will our Pacific brothers and sisters go when their islands are underwater? You know, like, we're really terrified about this, and I'm wondering if you're worried about this too.
That's an invitation to you, Phil.
I don't have an access card anymore. I'll be no use to anyone. But the more the point, James, is I got to be honest with you. I don't agree with that kind of action. I think it's much more valuable to calmly discuss these matters with people. You've decided otherwise. Good for you. You go for your life. But you certainly won't find me supporting you, I'm afraid, in terms of the action that you're taking.
Okay, now, James, you have been looking at your site, and back to the issue of Restore Passenger Rail. Let's talk about the goals, okay? So you're on here now. You have a goal to provide free rail to much of the country, free public rail to much of the country. Am I right?
Our goal is to restore passenger rail services. So that means to bring back trains right from Whangarei in the north down to Wellington, Picton, down all the way to Invercargill and lots of places in between, and make those affordable passenger rail services, not these fancy tourist trains that we have today, and also to bring about free public transport. So
have you got a figure for us? Have you got a figure on how much restoring free rail across the country, free of charge, would cost?
I don't have a figure on the rail, but on free public transport, the government is now investing $1.3 billion in a bus ticketing system. They're hiring a company called Cubic, which does work. It's an American company that does work in weapons guidance systems. They could spend that $1.3 billion on free public transport for 3 years.
Yep.
Now, when the Gold Card came out, that caused over 1 million car journeys not to be taken each year. Imagine if all those Gold Card users got back on Auckland Road.
I'd be interested to hear on how much you think it would cost to provide and restore free rail across the country. That's one thing perhaps you could work on.
Well, we're not campaigning for free rail across the country. We're campaigning for affordable public rail across the country, affordable passenger rail, and for free local, public transport.
All right. Good to have you on, James. Thank you for that. That's James Cockle, spokesperson for Restore Passenger Rail. A variety of responses to that. So, Phil, you don't support them. Julia, you do.
No, I don't support what they're doing. I don't, but gluing yourselves and carrying on like that, I don't support that. But I do think something has to be done.
All right. Tom says, I totally support the Restore Passenger Rail protest stated this morning. Our policies and actions are woeful. Another one here, 100% support the protesters. Only disruption will create change. Tony, though, says these people are immature idiots who will prove nothing to most people in New Zealand. Large response to that. Kia ora to you all for providing that feedback.